The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Torrey Pines coastal resort, its waves catching the last golden light of sunset. Catherine Aldridge stood at the edge of the grand terrace, champagne flute untouched in her hand, as San Diego's elite mingled behind her at the Ocean Conservation Annual Dinner. As founder and CEO of BioNova Technologies, she'd pledged $5 million tonight to marine research, a tribute to the husband she'd lost to these very waters. Lost. The word felt like a stone in her chest. The string quartet played Vivaldi, while guests in designer gowns and tailored suits discussed stock portfolios and yacht clubs. Catherine smiled mechanically through every air kiss. You're so strong that made her want to scream into the void. Mrs. Aldridge. Her executive assistant, Rachel Park, appeared at her elbow, tablet in hand. Channel 8 wants a quote about the Jonathan Aldridge Memorial Fellowship. Catherine nodded, preparing to recite the carefully crafted statement she'd approved that morning. But before Rachel could guide her toward the press area, a voice cut through the classical music, quiet. Young, but absolutely certain. He didn't die in that accident. Catherine's spine went rigid. The voice came from near the service entrance, where catering staff moved efficiently between the kitchen and terrace. She turned slowly, scanning the crowd. A black girl stood partially hidden behind a decorative palm, her faded jeans and oversized flannel jacket starkly out of place among the evening gowns. She looked about 14, her hair pulled into a high ponytail, her dark eyes intense and unwavering. "Excuse me?" Catherine's voice carried the controlled precision of someone accustomed to boardroom power plays. The girl stepped forward, moving with the careful confidence of someone who'd learned to navigate spaces where she didn't belong. "Your husband, Dr. Jonathan Aldridge. The research vessel explosion off Point Loma 22 months ago. He survived. I witnessed his extraction." Rachel moved to intercept. "Security. We have an unauthorized stop." Catherine's hand shot up, silencing her assistant. The terrace seemed to contract, the 200 guests fading into insignificant background noise. "Come here. Now." The girl approached, chin raised despite the stares from nearby socialites. Up close, Catherine could see the intelligence in her eyes, the determination in her posture, and the worn shoes that had walked too many miles. "Tell me exactly what you're claiming," Catherine said, her CEO voice in full force. 22 months ago, the research vessel Poseidon Explorer exploded approximately 3 miles off the coast. Official reports said all 7 crew members perished, including your husband. But I was there, on the cliffs above La Jolla Cove. I saw what happened after the Coast Guard left. One of Catherine's board members, an older man in a tuxedo, scoffed. "This is absurd. Mrs. Aldridge. Security can escort this child. No one touches her." Catherine's tone could have frozen the Pacific. She descended the 3 marble steps, separating the main terrace from the garden path, bringing herself eye to eye with the girl. "Continue." The girl didn't flinch. "I was camping on the cliffs. Illegally, I'd run from my group home in Chula Vista. I had binoculars I'd found at a thrift store. When the explosion happened around dusk, I watched everything. The Coast Guard boats, the helicopters, the search. They looked for 6 hours, then called it off when it got too dark. But I stayed. Why? Because I had nowhere else to go, and because something felt wrong." The girl's voice steadied. "Around midnight, a yacht appeared. Not Coast Guard, not Navy. Private vessel. Expensive. Running without navigation lights. They deployed a submersible, I watched it go down with my binoculars. 20 minutes later, it, it surfaced. They pulled 3 people from the water. One of them was your husband. Catherine's heart hammered against her ribs. That's impossible. The water temperature that night was 53 degrees. No one could have survived 6 hours. They weren't in the water. They were in an emergency pod. I saw them haul it onto the yacht. Your husband was conscious, fighting. The other 2 were injured. And there was something else. The girl reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a waterproof pouch. Inside was a piece of metal, maybe 2 inches across, part of a nameplate. Dawn Explorer with a serial number partially visible. And beneath it, a laminated card showing a logo Catherine had never seen before, a blue Hydra with 7 heads surrounding a ship's wheel. I found these floating near the shore the next morning, the girl said. Kept them because I knew they meant something. Catherine took the pouch with trembling hands, her biotechnology expertise immediately analyzing the card. This isn't standard maritime identification. The Hydra symbol, 7 heads, specifically, that's unusual. And the material. She ran her thumb across it. This is medical-grade polymer, not nautical equipment. Do you believe me now? I believe you found these. I believe you saw something. Catherine met the girl's gaze. But I need more. My husband had a distinctive tattoo on his left forearm. A DNA double helix, with specific base pairs spelling out my name in genetic code. Did you see that? The girl's eyes widened. Yes. I saw it when they were pulling him onto the yacht. His sleeve was torn. I remember thinking it was weird. Looked like science stuff, mixed with art. Catherine felt the world tilt. That tattoo was private. Designed by Jonathan himself using actual genetic sequencing. They'd never publicized it. Never posted it on social media. Only Catherine and Jonathan knew the exact pattern. What's your name? Catherine asked quietly. Keisha. Keisha Thompson. And why are you telling me this now? Keisha Thompson? 22 months later? Keisha's jaw tightened. Because I tried before. Called the Coast Guard tip line. They said I was making it up. Told a counselor at the group home. She said I had trauma issues. Even tried emailing the police. No response. She pulled out a crumpled newspaper clipping showing Catherine at last month's BioNova shareholder meeting. Then I saw this. You were talking about the Memorial Fellowship. About keeping your husband's work alive. And I realized you deserved to know the truth. Even if no one else cared. Catherine studied this teenager who'd appeared like a ghost at her charity gala, bearing impossible information delivered with unflinching conviction. Every instinct screamed, this was fantasy. Grief-induced delusion. Krell. Manipulation. But something in Keisha's eyes, something raw and honest and fearless, made her pause. Come with me, Catherine said. Ma'am. You cannot be serious, Rachel started. I'm completely serious. Derek. Catherine called to her head of security, a former Marine standing discreetly near the terrace entrance. Clear the executive lounge. Ms. Thompson and I need privacy. Derek Stone. 6'3" of tactical precision and unwavering loyalty. Assessed Keisha in 2 seconds flat. Yes. Ma'am. I'll sweep the room. 10 minutes later, Catherine sat across from Keisha in the resort's executive lounge. A space of leather furniture and ocean views normally reserved for corporate negotiations. Derek stood by the door. Alert, but unobtrusive. Rachel hovered with a tablet, ready to document everything. Catherine leaned forward, her Cartier bracelet catching the light. I need you to tell me everything. From the moment you arrived at the cliffs to the moment you left. Every detail. No matter how small. Keisha took a shaky breath and began. She described the cliff path she'd taken from the Torrey Pines State Reserve, the hidden cove where she'd set up her sleeping bag. She detailed the explosion, the orange fireball visible for miles, the debris field, the immediate Coast Guard response. They had helicopters with searchlights, Keisha said. Boats circling the area. I could hear them on megaphones, calling for survivors. But they were searching the wrong area. The current had carried the emergency pods south, toward the submarine canyon. That's where the yacht found them. Describe the yacht. Big, maybe 80 feet. White hull, dark windows. No name visible from my angle. When they pulled your husband aboard, he was screaming. Not in pain, in anger. I heard him yelling Catherine over and over. Then someone on the boat stuck something in his neck. A needle. I think. He went limp. Catherine's throat constricted. The other two people. Did you see their faces? One was a woman. Maybe 30s. Red hair. The other was a man. Older. With a beard. They both looked injured but conscious. Catherine's mind raced. Jonathan's research team that day had included Dr. Tenriple's Sarah Chen, his lead marine biologist, and Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, a visiting oceanographer from Scripps. Both had been presumed dead. Could they have survived too? After they took them, where did the yacht go? South, toward the Mexican border. I watched through my binoculars until I couldn't see the lights anymore. Derek spoke up from his position by the door. Mrs. Aldridge, if this is accurate. We're talking about a coordinated extraction operation. That level of planning requires resources, intelligence, and motive. Catherine stood and walked to the window, staring out at the dark Pacific. Jonathan's final research project. He was investigating illegal biomedical waste dumping in protected marine sanctuaries. He'd found evidence of pharmaceutical compounds in the water that shouldn't have been there, experimental drugs, banned substances. He was scheduled to present his findings to the EPA the week after the explosion, so someone silenced him. Keisha said quietly. Or tried to. Catherine turned, her expression hardening into the look that had built a billion-dollar biotech empire. Rachel, I need our head of corporate intelligence on the line. Derek, start running background on this Hydra symbol. Check maritime databases, medical supply companies, offshore pharmaceutical operations. Keisha. She paused. Where have you been living? Around. Beaches, mostly. The library during the day? For 22 months? Yeah. Catherine felt something crack in her carefully maintained composure. This child had been surviving alone on the streets for nearly 2 years, carrying information that could change everything, and society had dismissed her completely. That ends tonight, Catherine said firmly. Derek, arrange a suite in this hotel. Full accommodations. Keisha, you're staying here until we figure this out. Tomorrow, we start investigating properly. Together. Keisha's eyes widened. You actually believe me? I believe you saw something real. I believe those artifacts are genuine. And I believe my husband is either still alive or someone went to enormous lengths to fake his death. Catherine pulled out her phone. Either way, I'm going to find out the truth. And you're going to help me? Within an hour, Catherine had mobilized resources that most people couldn't access in a lifetime. Her head of corporate intelligence, formerly NSA, began analyzing the Hydra symbol. Her private investigator, a former LAPD detective, started pulling maritime records from the night of the explosion. And her legal team, the best in California, began filing information requests with every relevant agency. Catherine sat in the hotel suite she'd reserved for Keisha, watching the teenager examine the luxury bathroom with wonder. When was the last time this child had taken a hot shower in safety? "Why are you doing this?" Keisha asked, emerging in the hotel robe, her hair still damp. "You don't know me. I could be lying. You could be, but you're not." Catherine handed her a menu. "Order room service. Whatever you want. Then sleep. Tomorrow, we have work to do." "What kind of work?" "The kind that brings my husband home." That night, while Keisha slept in a real bed for the first time in nearly 2 years, Catherine stood in her own penthouse overlooking the harbor. She'd sent the gala guests home with apologies about a family emergency. Now, alone with her thoughts, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of what Keisha had revealed. Jonathan might be alive. 22 months of grief, of forcing herself to lead BioNova through the pain, of becoming harder and colder and more ruthless. With each passing day, all of it might have been unnecessary. Or worse, it might have been exactly what someone wanted: keep her focused on business while they held Jonathan prisoner. Her phone buzzed. "Derek, we found something." The Hydra symbol matches a logo used by an organization called the Hydra Collective. They're ghost stories in the intelligence community, offshore medical services, experimental, pharmaceuticals, research that falls outside regulatory oversight. If they exist, they operate in international waters and failed states. Why would they target Jonathan? Your husband discovered their dumping sites. He had evidence that could have triggered international investigations. Taking him eliminates the whistleblower and potentially gives them access to BioNova's proprietary research through leverage. They've had 22 months. Why haven't they contacted me? Maybe they were waiting for you to move on. Or maybe... Derek paused. "Maybe Dr. Aldridge hasn't given them what they want." Catherine smiled grimly. "He wouldn't. Jonathan would die before compromising his principles. Then he might still be alive, being held as a future asset. Find them. Derek, I don't care what it costs or how long it takes. Find my husband." Over the next week, Catherine's life transformed into a covert intelligence operation masked as business as usual. She attended board meetings and investor calls while simultaneously coordinating a private investigation that spanned 3 continents. Keisha proved invaluable. Her street-smart instincts and detailed memory helped Catherine's team reconstruct the night of the explosion with precision. Together, they identified the yacht based on its configuration and estimated speed, a custom build registered to a shell company in Panama. But the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Catherine was reviewing satellite imagery in her BioNova office when Keisha, who'd been given a temporary workspace and unlimited internet access, called out excitedly, "I found something. Look at this." On her screen was a maritime tracking database showing ship movements. Keisha had overlaid the yacht's projected course with known locations of offshore medical facilities. If they were heading south at the speed I estimated, they would have reached this area by dawn. She pointed to a location 60 miles off the Baja California coast. "And look, there's a former oil platform here that was supposedly decommissioned 8 years ago. But check the satellite images from last month." Catherine leaned in. The platform showed heat signatures and what appeared to be a helicopter landing pad with recent activity. "Someone's using it." Catherine breathed. "Derek, can we verify this?" Derek pulled up enhanced satellite imagery. "Definitely active. Power generation. Regular supply boat traffic. And..." He zoomed in. "That's a medical waste incinerator. You can see the exhaust patterns. That's them," Keisha said with certainty. "That's where they took him." Catherine stared at the coordinates, her mind already calculating. We need federal support for this. We can't just raid an offshore platform. Actually, Derek said carefully, we could. The platform is in international waters, technically. If you have evidence of criminal activity and kidnapped you, as citizens, you're suggesting we mount a private rescue operation. I'm suggesting you have options beyond waiting for bureaucracy to move. Catherine turned to Rachel. Get me Agent Sarah Mitchell at the FBI. Tell her I have information about an offshore biomedical operation engaged in kidnapping, illegal dumping, and possibly bioterrorism. Tell her I need a tactical response team ready to deploy within 48 hours. And if she can't mobilize that quickly, Catherine's smile was cold as the Pacific depths. Then we go ourselves. Agent Mitchell, as it turned out, was very interested in the Hydra Collective. She'd been tracking rumors of their operation for 3 years but had never been able to confirm a location. If your intelligence is solid, Mitchell said during a secure video call, I can have a joint task force ready to go in 36 hours. Coast Guard, FBI, HRT, and tactical support from Navy SEALs training nearby. What do you need from me? Everything you have. And I need your witness, Keisha Thompson, to provide testimony. Catherine looked at Keisha, who sat beside her in the secure conference room. Are you willing to do that? Absolutely. But I want to be there when you go in. Out of the question. Mitchell said immediately. This is a federal tactical operation. Civilians stay clear. I'm not just a civilian. I'm the only person who can positively identify Dr. Aldridge and the others on site. And I can describe the people who took them. Mitchell and Catherine exchanged a look. She stays in the command vessel. Catherine said, no field exposure. But she comes. Because I'm coming too. And I'll need her expertise. Mrs. Aldridge, Agent Mitchell. I'm funding this operation with BioNova resources. I'm providing the intelligence. And that's my husband on that platform. I will be there when you bring him out. Negotiate if you want. But those are my terms. A long silence. Then Mitchell smiled slightly. You remind me why people don't argue with you in boardrooms. Fine. But you follow my directives exactly, or I'll have you airlifted off the vessel myself. 36 hours later, just before dawn, Catherine stood on the deck of a Coast Guard cutter 20 miles from the oil platform. She wore a bulletproof vest over tactical clothing, her long dark hair pulled back severely. Beside her, Keisha watched through night vision binoculars as Navy helicopters circled in the pre-dawn darkness. You scared? Keisha asked quietly. Terrified. You? Same. Derek appeared, checking his weapon. He'd insisted on being part of the tactical team, using his Marine credentials to embed with the FBI unit. Final brief in 5 minutes. You two stay on this vessel no matter what happens on that platform. Understood. Catherine lied smoothly. The assault began at 0530 hours. Catherine watched on tactical monitors as helicopters fast-roped operators onto the platform. The initial breach was clean 2 guards, neutralized. Main entrance secured within 90 seconds. Then the radio traffic intensified. Multiple hostiles, East Sector, medical facility located. Sublevel 2, we have civilians. Repeat. We have multiple civilians in medical restraints. Catherine's hands clenched the railing. Beside her, Keisha had gone very still. Confirmed visual on Dr. Jonathan Aldridge. Male. Early 40s. Responsive. Medical team requested urgently. Catherine's vision blurred. Keisha grabbed her hand. squeezing tight. Two additional captives identified as Dr. Sarah Chen and Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, all alive, all in medical distress. 23 minutes after the assault began, Agent Mitchell's voice came through clearly. Platform secure. Multiple detainees in custody. Medical evacuation. Proceeding. Mrs. Aldridge. We're bringing them out. The helicopter that landed on the cutter's deck carried a precious cargo. Catherine stood frozen as medics transferred 3 gurneys. On the first was Sarah Chen, conscious but weak. On the second was Marcus Rodriguez, sedated for transport. On the third was Jonathan. Catherine crossed the deck in 3 strides, pushing past a medic who tried to stop her. Jonathan's eyes were closed, his face gaunt. His oceanographer's strong build reduced to sharp angles and hollow cheeks, but his chest rose and fell with steady breathing. "Jonathan," she whispered, taking his hand. His eyes fluttered open. For a moment, he stared at her without recognition. Then clarity flooded his gaze. "Catherine, are you real?" "I'm real. You're safe. You're coming home." His hand gripped hers with surprising strength. 22 months. I counted every day. Told myself you'd find me. You always were the smartest person I'd ever met. She laughed through tears. I had help. A lot of help. Keisha appeared beside her. Nervous but determined. Jonathan's eyes focused on her. "You," he said hoarsely. "I remember you. On the cliffs. The night they took us, you were watching. I'm sorry I couldn't help you then." Keisha said, "But I helped find you now. Thank you." Jonathan whispered, "Thank you for not forgetting us." The medical team loaded all 3 victims onto a Coast Guard helicopter for immediate transport to UCSD Medical Center. Catherine rode with Jonathan, his hand never leaving hers. Behind them, on the oil platform, federal agents were discovering the full scope of the Hydra Collective's operation. It was worse than anyone had imagined. Experimental drug manufacturing, illegal medical trials on kidnapped victims, biomedical waste processing that violated every international treaty. And in a locked office, they found files detailing the whole operation, including why Jonathan had been kept alive. The Hydra Collective had been trying to force him to authenticate falsified environmental reports that would allow them to expand their dumping operations. When he'd refused for 22 months straight, they'd planned to eventually use Catherine's company as leverage. They'd underestimated both of them. 3 weeks later, Jonathan Aldridge sat in his own home overlooking La Jolla Cove. The same waters that had nearly claimed him. His body was healing, the physical injuries fading faster than the psychological ones. But he was alive. He was home. And he was surrounded by people who loved him. Catherine sat beside him on the deck, reviewing the federal prosecutor's case against the Hydra Collective. 43 arrests across 7 countries. Evidence that would take years to fully process. The organization's infrastructure was destroyed. Keisha burst through the glass door, carrying her laptop. She'd been living with them for 3 weeks now. And the transformation was remarkable. Regular meals, clean clothes, safety. And most importantly, a family had helped her flourish in ways Catherine found both heartbreaking and beautiful. "The news is calling you the relentless CEO," Keisha announced, grinning. "There are already 3 different podcasts about how you took down an international crime syndicate." Catherine groaned. "I hate publicity. You literally funded and coordinated a federal raid on an offshore platform," Jonathan said, smiling at his wife. "That's going to generate publicity. We all did it. It was a team effort." "No," Keisha said firmly. You believed me when nobody else did. You had the resources to act. You made it happen. Catherine's phone rang. Agent Mitchell. Mrs. Aldridge. I wanted to give you advance warning. Based on evidence from the platform, we've identified 6 other similar facilities worldwide. We're coordinating with Interpol for simultaneous raids next month. The Hydra Collective wasn't just one platform, it was a global network. Do you need BioNova's support? Actually, yes. Your biotech expertise would be invaluable in analyzing the experimental compounds they were developing. Would you consider consulting? Catherine looked at Jonathan and Keisha, her reconstituted family. I'll do more than consult. BioNova will establish a permanent program dedicated to combating illegal biomedical operations. We'll work with international law enforcement, provide technical expertise, and create systems to prevent this from happening again. That's incredibly generous. It's necessary. These people nearly destroyed my family. I won't let them destroy anyone else's. After the call ended, Jonathan raised an eyebrow. Starting a crusade? Someone has to. We have the knowledge, the resources, and now very personal motivation. She looked at Keisha. And I have a brilliant young investigator who sees what others miss. Me? Keisha's eyes widened. You. I've been thinking about creating a youth advisory council for the program. Young people who've been marginalized, who've survived on society's edges. They notice patterns that adults miss. Would you be interested in heading it up? Are you serious? Completely. You'd work with law enforcement. Help identify vulnerable communities. Maybe speak publicly about your experience, but only if you want to. Keisha looked overwhelmed. I'm just a kid who lived on the beach. You're the person who saved 3 lives and helped destroy a criminal empire. You're exactly who we need. 6 months later, Catherine Aldridge stood before a Senate committee in Washington, D.C. Jonathan sat on her right, healthy and strong again. Keisha sat on her left, wearing professional clothes, but still radiating the fierce independence that had saved them all. Thank you for being here. The committee chairman said, Mrs. Aldridge, please proceed. Catherine spoke with the same commanding presence that had built BioNova. 22 months ago, my husband was kidnapped by an international criminal organization operating offshore medical facilities engaged in illegal research, environmental crimes, and human trafficking. They held him and 2 colleagues for nearly 2 years, attempting to coerce cooperation through torture and threats. She gestured to Keisha. This investigation would never have succeeded without Keisha Thompson, a 14-year-old witness who saw the kidnapping, tried to report it, and was systematically ignored by every authority she contacted. Because she was young, because she was homeless, because she was black. Society had trained people not to see her. Keisha's voice was clear when she spoke. I've been invisible most of my life. Foster care, group homes. Living on the streets, people looked right through me. But being invisible taught me to observe, to notice details others missed. The night Dr. Aldridge was taken, I saw everything because nobody thought to look for witnesses like me. She pulled up images on the screen behind them. These are the 19 facilities worldwide that we've helped international authorities identify over the past 6 months. All of them were hiding in plain sight. We found them by listening to people society usually ignores: homeless youth, undocumented workers, indigenous communities living near the coast, people who see everything but are rarely asked what they know. Jonathan spoke next, his voice carrying quiet authority. During my 22 months of captivity, I witnessed dozens of people cycle through that facility. Kidnapped researchers like myself, Human trafficking victims. Even people seeking medical care they couldn't get legally and being exploited. These organizations exist in the gaps we've created in society, the places where the vulnerable fall through and criminals can operate freely. Over the next 5 hours, they presented evidence that fundamentally changed how the federal government approached offshore criminal enterprises. New task forces were formed. International cooperation agreements were signed. And, most importantly, programs were created to listen to witnesses from marginalized communities. The Senate chamber erupted in sustained applause when they finished. But Catherine wasn't focused on the acclaim. She was looking at Jonathan and Keisha, her family forged through trauma and determination and refusing to accept loss. That evening, they returned to San Diego on Catherine's corporate jet. Keisha fell asleep against the window. Exhausted, Jonathan held Catherine's hand, his thumb tracing the wedding ring she'd never removed. "Did you ever imagine this?" he asked softly. "When we got married, did you think we'd end up hunting international criminals?" Catherine smiled. "No. I thought we'd cure diseases, explore the ocean, maybe adopt children through conventional means. Instead, you were kidnapped. I became a vigilante CEO. And we adopted a teenage genius who refuses to stay quiet about injustice. Regrets?" She looked at Keisha's sleeping face, at the girl who'd refused to let Jonathan disappear into the darkness. "Not one." "What's next for the Aldridge family?" "Next, we expand the program. 19 facilities down. But there are more. And we have the resources, the Senate's support, and the determination to find them all." Jonathan laughed quietly. "My wife. The Crusader. Our family. The Crusaders," she corrected. "This stopped being my fight the moment Keisha walked into that gala. In the months that followed, the Aldridge Foundation became a global force against offshore criminal enterprises. Catherine leveraged BioNova's biotech expertise. Jonathan used his oceanographic knowledge to identify suspicious maritime activity. Keisha became the face of their youth initiative, training young people from marginalized communities to be advocates and investigators. They appeared together on international news programs. This improbable trio, the biotech CEO, the scientist who'd survived nearly 2 years of captivity, and the teenager who'd seen what society had trained itself to ignore. But it wasn't always victories. Some facilities disappeared before they could be raided. Some criminals evaded justice. Some victims couldn't be saved. On those nights, they'd gather on their deck overlooking the Pacific, reminding themselves why the fight mattered. "For everyone who can't fight for themselves," Catherine would say. "For the truth that refuses to stay buried," Jonathan would add. "For every invisible person who needs someone to finally see them," Keisha would finish. A year after Jonathan's rescue, the three of them stood on the beach at La Jolla Cove, near the cliffs where Keisha had witnessed everything. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Keisha was 15 now, taller and more confident. Jonathan had fully recovered, his scientist's mind sharper than ever. Catherine stood between them, arms around both. "Do you think we've actually changed anything?" Keisha asked. Catherine thought about the 19 facilities shut down, the hundreds of victims freed, the policies changed, the lives saved. "Yes, but the work continues. It always continues," Jonathan said. "But that's okay. Some fights are worth fighting forever. Together," Keisha added. "Together," they echoed. As darkness fell over the California coast, the three of them turned from the ocean that had almost claimed Jonathan and walked toward their car. Behind them, the waves whispered against the rocks. Ahead of them, A future of challenges and battles and triumphs waited. But they would face it as they'd faced everything else, as a family. Bound not by blood or convention, but by choice. The choice to fight for truth, to see the invisible, to never surrender. Because some families are born, others are built, and the strongest ones are forged through fire. Determination, and the unshakable belief that every person, no matter how invisible society has made them, deserves to be seen, heard, and fought for. That was a legacy worth building, and the Aldridge family was just getting started.